Hey there, how's it going, everybody? Now, I know it's been a long time since I've released a video, and maybe at some point in the future, I'll go more into why it took me so long to get back into making tutorials, but I'm not going to go into that here. Instead, I figured we'd just jump right in and do something fun to get back into the swing of things. So I was thinking we could do a simulation of some type, and a couple of months ago, the Powerball jackpot broke the record for the largest lottery jackpot ever. I believe it was even over $2 billion, if not close to that. And ultimately, I believe someone from California ended up winning that jackpot. But it got me thinking that it might be fun to write a script to simulate playing the Powerball. So I've seen a few scripts online that simulate your chances of hitting the jackpot, but I thought that we could write one that takes all of the lesser prizes into account as well. That way you get a rough estimate of what you could expect to pay versus how much you could expect to win after playing the lottery a certain amount of times. So before we write this, let me show you the output from our finished script and what that'll look like. So right now, I have the finished script that we'll be writing in this video. And right now, I have it set to buy 2 Powerball tickets for each drawing. And by a drawing, I just mean when they draw the winning numbers. And they actually draw Powerball tickets 3 times a week. So if there's 52 weeks in a year times 3, then that's about 156 drawings per year. So in this simulation here, we'd be buying 2 tickets for every drawing of the year. And one more quick thing for people who don't really know about the Powerball, let me also switch over to the odds here to explain exactly how Powerball works so you can kind of understand what the output from this script is going to be giving us. So basically in Powerball, you have 5 white balls, and they are numbered between 1 and 69. And they also have red balls that are numbered between 1 and 26, which is the Powerball. So if you hit all 5 of the white numbers, it doesn't matter what order, as long as you get those numbers right, and the Powerball, then you win the grand prize. But you can see that the odds of doing that are very low. That's like 1 in 300 million. But then we also have some lesser prizes here. So if you hit all 5 without the Powerball, then you win 1 million. If you hit 4 plus the Powerball, 50,000. 4 white balls only is 100. 3 plus the Powerball is 100, and so on. And you can see once we get down here, if you just hit 2 by themselves, then you don't win anything. If you just hit 1 by itself, you don't win anything. You have to hit the Powerball with those to get anything. And it's only $7 and $4. So now let's go back to the script here, and let me go ahead and run this, and I'll explain the output of what we're going to have for this little simulation here. So we played for an entire year, and we spent $624. It's $2 per Powerball ticket, I should say that. So we spent $624. Our earnings were $67. And I also wanted to keep track of how many times we hit each of the prizes. So 5 plus P would be the jackpot. That's 5 white balls plus the Powerball. This one's just 5 white balls, 4 plus P, and so on. So the 0 here is just that we didn't get any of the prizes. So you can see that the majority of the time, 296 times, we didn't get any of the prizes. 11 times we hit the Powerball only. 4 times we got 1 plus the Powerball. And you can see here, one of the times we got 3 white balls, but no Powerball. Okay, so now that we've got an idea of what we're actually going to be writing, let's go ahead and go over to an empty script here, and let's go ahead and get started on writing this. Now, I will say right off the bat that this script is probably going to have a lot more code than it actually needs, because I want to simulate this in the way that the lottery is actually played. So for example, I'm going to be grabbing random numbers for each drawing and each ticket that we buy. But I think statistically we'd get the same results if I only generated the winning numbers once and compared everything to that. But I just want it to be as close to the actual lottery as possible, even if it does slow down the execution of our code a good bit. Okay, so with that said, in order to get started on writing a simulation like this, let's first put in some constants. So first, let's define our options for the white balls and also the options for the Powerball. And like I said, the white balls range from 1 to 69. Nice. So we'll just make this a list of numbers by saying white underscore possibilities is equal to, and we'll just do a list of range from 1 to 70 because this last number here is not inclusive. And then we will also do the white possibles in the same way. And the Powerballs range from 1 to 26. So I'll put a 27 there, and let's just rename that to red possibles. And now that we have that, let's define how many tickets that we want to buy each time there's a drawing, and also how many drawings that we want to simulate. So I'll just say tickets per drawing is equal to 1 for now, and then number of drawings is equal to 1. And lastly here, to keep track of how much money we've spent and how much money we've earned, let's go ahead and do a couple of constants there. So I'll say total spent is equal to 0, and earnings is equal to 0. Okay, and some of the code I'm going to pull from a snippets file just because I'm a slow typer, and I know that you all don't want to watch me type out some of these longer constants here, but I also want to keep track of how many times we hit different prizes, and I'll keep track of this with a dictionary of all the possible outcomes. So if I go to the snippets file here, then let me grab this dictionary and paste this in, and all this is what we saw before. Times 1 is going to be for all the different prizes. So 5 plus Powerball, 5, 4 plus Powerball, and so on. And for anybody following along, as usual, I'll have the snippets and the code in the description section below. Okay, so with that set up in place, we're ready to actually simulate some Powerball drawings. So first of all, we need to loop through the number of drawings that we want to simulate and draw the winning numbers for each of those. So we'll just say for drawing in range of our number of drawings. And now we're at this point, what we want to do is to draw our winning numbers. Now I'm going to separate them out into the white balls and the Powerball. So for the white balls, let's take a random sample of 5 balls from the list of possibilities that we made earlier. First, to do this, we're going to need to import the random module. And this is a built-in module, so you don't need to pip install anything. So here at the top of our file, I'll just say import random. And then back down here in our loop, to get a random sample of 5 unique balls, we can just say that our white drawing is going to be equal to random.sample, and we want to take a sample from those white possibles, and we're going to set k equal to 5 to say that we want a sample of 5 of those. Now, if you've never used the random module and want to learn more about how to use this in detail, then I do have an entire video on the random module, and I'll be sure to put a link to that in the description section below. So random.sample here is going to return a list, which is fine. There's ways that we can make that work. But since this is a unique set of numbers, let's just go ahead and cast this to be a set. And this will also make it easier to help us when comparing our numbers to the ticket numbers in a bit. So to cast this to a set, we can just wrap that in a set. Now for the Powerball, this is just going to be a single number. So we can just use random.choice to get one value from those possibilities. So we can just say red drawing is equal to random.choice, and we want a choice from those red possibles. Okay, so now we have the white balls, the random white balls from the drawing, and we have the Powerball. And there's probably a lot of different ways that we could combine these into, one winning drawing. And honestly, we wouldn't even need to combine them at all. But I feel like this will be easier to read if we combine both of those into, one value. Now, I'm going to do this with a dictionary so that it's easier to read, but you could also use a list or probably, a few other ways. So I'm just going to say that the winning numbers are equal to, and I'm going to make this a dictionary, and I'm going to have a key of whites here, and I will pass in our set of white numbers, and then I will have a key of red here and just pass in our red drawing. Okay, so now we have the winning numbers here from a single drawing. Now remember, we also gave ourselves the option to buy multiple tickets per drawing. So let's loop through the number of tickets that we plan to buy for each drawing. So first, let's just go ahead and loop through these by saying for ticket in our range of tickets per drawing. Now, since we're looping through our tickets here, if you remember, I have this total spent up here, and these are $2 per ticket. So let's just increment that by 2 each time we go through this loop. And now this is going to be similar to what we just did up here because we're just going to grab some random numbers for our tickets. Now, if you have some, favorite lucky numbers or something, then you can just hard code those in. You can just set this to, buy one ticket and then hard code in your lucky numbers or something like that. But if you buy multiple tickets at a store, then usually they just print you off random numbers if you don't ask for specific ones. So this is going to be basically the same here, but let's just change this to be, let's see, my whites for the white balls, and then say my red for the red ball. And just like before, let's go ahead and put this into a dictionary, and instead of winning numbers, I will call these my numbers, and we will set the whites key equal to the white balls for us, my white, and then for the red, we will do my red. Now, like I said before, this code is going to look a little long. Most of you might be thinking that we can, condense this down with a good bit of, some clever list comprehensions and things like that. And you'd be absolutely right. And definitely feel free to do that if you're following along. But I just think that it's easier to read this way for people learning to simulate something like this for the first time. Okay, so now we have our numbers for a specific ticket. Now we want to compare our numbers with the winning numbers and calculate how much we've actually won from that ticket. Now, before we think about how we're going to do this, one thing that I like to do if I get stuck writing code is to kind of just move forward one step at a time. So let's say for the sake of argument that we get stuck here and we don't really know the exact logic of how to calculate how much money we win off of a single ticket. Well, if we haven't figured that out yet, then let's just simply write a function with the name that we're trying to do. Even just doing this alone can help our thought process start working on a problem. So let's write a function, and we want to calculate the win amount. So I'll call this function calculate win amount, abbreviated. Now this function doesn't actually exist yet, so I'm going to comment this out for now. And let's go ahead and create this function here at the top of the file. Actually, I'll put it underneath our constants here. So let's create this function of calculate win amount. And in order to calculate how much we've actually won, we need to know the numbers that I have on my ticket compared to the winning numbers in the winning drawing. And we'll just set a win amount here to 0 for now. And then, whoops, that went to 50,000 for some reason. And now let's return that win amount. So like I was saying, if we get stuck, then I think that it helps just by defining a function with parameters and return values like this, just because, it still might not be clear of the exact logic that we want, but at least we're putting the parameters in place so that we know what we're working with, and at least makes it clear where we'll solve this problem once we are working on a solution. So just a small tip there that helps me from time to time whenever I get stuck. But now let's go ahead and finish writing this function and see how we can compare our ticket to the winning numbers and calculate our actual winnings. Now, if you remember from our graphic over here, all we're going to need to do is we're going to need to see how many of our white numbers match up with their white numbers and if we hit the Powerball or not. So we're going to need a way to see how many of our numbers are the same as the winning numbers. Now, if you remember, we used dictionaries as these values. If I go back down here, these here are what we're going to be passing into our calculate win amount function. So these are dictionaries with the keys of whites and red. So if I wanted to grab the white numbers from my ticket, then I could just say my numbers and access that white's key. And if I wanted to get the white numbers from the winning drawing, then I can just say winning numbers and access that white's key there. And also we have to remember that the values of these keys are these sets of numbers. So we're working with two sets of numbers here. Now, since this is a set and not a list, we actually have a very easy built-in method for doing this called intersection. And I have a previous video where I go over sets and talk about the different methods that we can use with sets. So again, if you'd like to see more of what we can do with that, then I'll leave a link to that video in the description section below. But for now, if we want to get the matching numbers between these two sets, then we can simply use a set method called intersection. So right here I'm saying, hey, for my white numbers, the set of my white numbers, I want to run this intersection, and I want to intersect that with the winning numbers whites. And what that is going to return is it's going to return another set of the same values that are in both of those sets. Now, we're not interested in the exact values. We're more interested in how many numbers we matched, you know, so we can see, okay, I have one of the white balls is the same, or two of the white balls is the same, and so on. So to get the number, we can just wrap this entire thing into a length and get the length of that intersection. So this entire thing here should give us how many white numbers we matched from our ticket to the winning numbers. So I will just put this into a variable called white matches. Now, in terms of determining whether the Powerball is a match or not, is going to be a lot easier because all we're going to have to do is we'll have a conditional seeing if that specific number matches. So we can just say power match is equal to, and we just want to say my numbers and grab that red value, and we just want to see, is that equal to the winning numbers red value? And let's go ahead and put these in some parentheses here. Well, never mind, my code formatter doesn't like those, so we'll just keep going. Now all this is doing here is this conditional here is going to return a true or a false value. So if they do match, then power match will be true, and if they don't match, then power match will be false. Okay, so now that we know how many white matches we have and whether we have a Powerball match, all we need to do now is write conditionals that are the same as the Powerball's rules, and then assign the amount that we win for each of those conditionals. Now, again, I'm going to grab some of this code from a code snippet because these are just going to be a lot of different conditionals. But these are mostly going to all look the same aside from the number of matches and the winning amount. But first, let's go ahead and write the first one here, and then I'll paste in the others. So first, let's check if we won the actual jackpot. So if our white matches is equal to 5, then that means that we matched all 5 of those white balls. And now we want to check if we match the Powerball. So if I say if power match within this conditional, so if we hit 5 and we hit the Powerball, then that's the jackpot. And the jackpot varies, but so we can put in, you know, whatever we want here. This goes up and down depending on if anybody's hit the jackpot recently or not. But since I decided to write this based on that $2 billion ticket, let's go ahead and make this big and make it a $2 billion ticket, just like we're playing for that one a couple of months ago. Now, if you remember, we're also keeping track of how many times we hit each of these prizes. So let's go ahead and also increment this as well. So I can say times 1, and we want to access that key, and that key was 5 plus P, and we'll just increment that by 1. Now I'll also put in an else statement here. Now we're still within this outer conditional here. We're still saying that we hit 5 of the whites, but this else here is just saying, okay, if we hit 5, but we didn't get the Powerball, then we actually still win something here, but the win amount is set to, let me check over here real quick. Yeah, that is 1 million. So we can just set that equal to 1 million. And here, instead of the times 1 being 5 plus the Powerball, which would be the jackpot, this is just going to be 5 without the Powerball. So this right here is basically what each of these conditionals is going to look like, with just a few changes to the numbers here and the win amounts. So instead of boring you guys to death while I write all of these out, I'm just going to grab these from a code snippet and paste it in. So I have this down here. So let me grab this, and then we'll go over and kind of look once we're done here. Now the only difference here, once I paste this in, is that this second conditional here is an elif instead of an if, because if we hit 5, then we don't want to check if we hit 4 after that. So this is going to be an elif instead of an if. So let's just go through these really quick. So after this conditional here, if we didn't hit 5, then we're saying, okay, well, did we match 4? If we did match 4, did we hit the Powerball? If so, that win amount's going to be 50,000. We're incrementing the times 1. If we hit 4 without a Powerball, we only get 100. If we match 3 with a Powerball, we get 100. If we don't get the Powerball, we only get 7, and so on. And down here, if you remember, we don't get anything for just matching 2. We actually have to match 2 and the Powerball to get any win. So that's why we're just saying if white matches is equal to 2 and the Powerball. And that's also the same thing for 1. If we get 1 match and a Powerball, then we get $4 back. And also we get money if we hit just the Powerball as well, which is also $4. And then at the very end, we're just saying else. If we didn't hit any of these, then I'm just saying that we didn't win, and that we're going to increment that we hit 0 and go with that as well. Okay, so with that, we already have all of our win amounts assigned for each possible outcome. And we're already returning the win amount down here at the end of our function. So that's going to be all that we need for this function. So now we're basically done with our simulation script here. All the hard work is done and out of the way. Now we just have to wrap up a couple of things at the bottom of the script and then print this out. Okay, so first, since we actually created this function now, and this function is returning the correct win amount for each ticket, all we need to do is set this to a value. So I'm going to say that our win amount is equal to calculate win amount function, and we want to pass in my numbers and compare those to the winning numbers. And since this is the win amount for a single ticket, we are also keeping track of our total earnings for all of our tickets. So let's increment that value as well. Now, if I go up here to my constants, that was earnings. I forgot what I called that. So we can say that earnings plus equals that win amount. And that's basically everything. Now all we need to do is just print out our results and then run some simulations. So outside of all of our loops here, all we want to do is print, and we'll just do an F string here, and we'll say that we spent, and then put in a $sign there, and that was total spent. And then let's put in how much we earned. So we'll say earnings, and that was called earnings. And let's also print out our dictionary where it shows how many times we hit each prize with all of our tickets. Now, if we just print it out directly, then it's going to be a little difficult to read. So a good way to print out dictionaries where they're easy to read is just to use the built-in JSON library. And this is super easy. All we need to do is come up here and import JSON, and then down here at the bottom, we can just dump this dictionary to a string by saying json.dump s, and that dictionary was called ×1. So ×1, and to make this look pretty, we can set an indent equal to 2 to where it indents those values out. And again, as usual, if you want to know more about the JSON library and how to work with that, then I do have a specific video on that as well. So I will also leave a link to that video in the description section below. Okay, so that should be everything that we need, but let's go ahead and run a few simulations here and make sure that we're getting the results that we expect. Now, the main thing that we're going to have to change here for different runs of this script is going to be the number of tickets that we want to buy per drawing and the number of drawings that we want to simulate. So right now we have this set to 1 ticket for 1 drawing. So let's say there's that big $2 billion prize, and we just go out and we buy our 1 ticket for that 1 drawing, and we're going to see if we hit it big. So let's go ahead and run that. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like we won. We spent $2, we earned 0, and we can see down here that 0 was incremented by 1 there. So we didn't win on that drawing. Okay, so let's say that we really want to win that jackpot. So instead of just buying 1 ticket, let's buy 100 tickets. So we're going to spend $200 trying to win this $2 billion cash prize. So we're buying 100 tickets just for this 1 drawing. Let's go ahead and run that. And we can see that we spent $200. We only earned 12, and 97 of our tickets were losses. On one of them, we hit just a Powerball. One was 1 plus a Powerball, or actually 2 were 1 plus a Powerball. So that's how you would just simulate 1 drawing. But let's say, maybe you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not just going to buy, a lot of tickets for just 1 drawing. I'm going to spread it out over the year. So I'm just going to buy 5 tickets, and let's see if I think there was, we said there was 156 drawings per year. So we'll just buy 5 tickets for every drawing for an entire year. Let's run that and see how that looks. So we can see in that entire year that we spent $1,560. We only earned $215. We did get 1 here that we matched 3 white balls plus the Powerball. So now let's take this and do some bigger numbers here. So let's say that somebody has plenty of money and they really want to win a jackpot at some point in their life. So let's buy 100 tickets for your entire lifetime. So if 156 is 1 year, let's say that you live a very long life. So that would be 10 years. If I add another 0 on here, that would be 100 years. So for every single drawing, you're buying 100 tickets, which would be $200, and you're going to do that for your entire lifetime for every drawing. So this is 100 tickets for 100 years. Let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. This is going to take a little bit longer. Okay, so we got our results here, and we can see that over our lifetime, we spent $3,120,000 on tickets, but we only made $300,000 in return. So let's see, what's the best we did here? So we can see that most of these we lost completely. We hit a lot of Powerballs, 40,000 of those, and these numbers kind of go down as we go up. And the best that we did was hitting 4 whites plus a single Powerball. And we only did that 1 time in our life. Now, that's the funny thing about the lottery, because a lot of people don't really comprehend the statistics stacked against them when they play, because, like I said, there was somebody who did win that $2 billion jackpot in real life. So people think, well, that could be me, and it could be, but statistically speaking, it's almost impossible because we bought 100 tickets for every drawing for 100 years and never even came close to hitting the jackpot. We didn't even get the $1 million prize. And that makes sense if you think about it, because since we spent $3,120,000 at $2 a ticket, that means that we bought, roughly 1.5 million tickets. But the odds of hitting the jackpot are almost 1 in 300 million. So we just get this warped perception of it being more possible than it is, just because there's millions and millions of these tickets being sold each week. And out of those crazy possibilities, sometimes somebody does hit it big. Now, it's actually easy to change around our simulation a bit here too if we want. So, for example, if you have some, like I said, if you have some personal lucky numbers, then you could just code those in directly instead of randomly generating tickets like we're doing here. Also, another way that we can change this script is to actually simulate how long it would take to hit the jackpot if we did buy 100 tickets for each drawing. So let's just assume that we could live forever, and we want to know how long it would take for us to bring in that $2 billion. Well, if we wanted to see that, then we could easily change this script around a bit here. So if I go down to our loop where we're looping over our drawings, right here where we're looping over our drawings, let's just change this to a conditional of while true. So basically we're saying, hey, I don't care, how many drawings I say I want. I just want to keep going until I win. And I'm going to code in a couple of other things here too. First of all, we just want to go until we actually hit the jackpot. So I'm going to say hit jackpot is equal to false. And I'm also going to keep track of how many drawings we go through. And so I'll say drawings is equal to 0 and years is equal to 0. So we'll keep track of the number of years that it takes us to hit the jackpot as well. So right inside of our conditional here, remember, this is going to be one drawing each time it goes through this loop here. And then in our inner loop here, where we are checking our tickets, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to check this win amount. So I'm going to say if that win amount is equal to that 2 billion that we are looking to hit. Oops, and this needs to be double equals there for a conditional. Then we are going to set that variable of hit jackpot equal to true. And since we finally hit that jackpot, then I'm going to break out of this inner loop. Now, we also want to break out of this outer loop, but we can't do that from this inner loop here. So what we can do is we can go to our outer loop here at the bottom, and I can just say, okay, if after that run we hit the jackpot, then break out of this outer loop as well. Now, I also said I wanted to keep track of how many years it would take until we actually hit the jackpot. So I can keep track of that by saying if drawings, which is the number of drawings that we've gone through, we can do a mod 156 on this equals 0. And basically what this is here is we're just dividing this by 156. And if the remainder is 0, then it means that that's been an entire year because there's 156 drawings for each year. So that's one easy way for us to tell. So then I can say years is plus equals 1 and increment that. And just to keep our sanity, because this might take a while, let's go ahead and print how many years have passed. Also, this will just let us know that our script's actually running, because sometimes it can take a long time until you hit the jackpot. Okay, so that should do it. So now, if I run this code, then it's going to start looping through and trying to hit the jackpot, and it'll break out once we do. Now, this could and likely will take a pretty long time, so I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward until we actually hit the jackpot and check back in once we've done that. Okay, so we finally hit a jackpot here. We can see that we have one jackpot. Let's see, it took us 7,385 years. And remember, that's buying 100 tickets each drawing, which even that is very unlikely that any of us would ever do that, because that's $600 every week, and that's a lot of money. But even under that scenario, it still took us over 7,000 years to hit that jackpot. So if there's one takeaway from this video, only play the jackpot if you have the money and are looking to have some fun on a universally small chance of winning. But if you're someone who can't afford it, then don't go into it with an expectation of being that one person to hit it big. Because like we saw here, that is going to be almost impossible. Now, we ended up spending, let's see here, $230 million. But remember, we had that $2 billion jackpot. So once we hit the jackpot, our earnings did outweigh what we spent. But again, that's also using the biggest jackpot ever in history. So yeah, I wouldn't expect to ever have your earnings go above your spendings here. Now, if I divide this by 2, let's see, that would be what, 115 million. So we actually did pretty good. We only bought 115 million tickets. If we go back here to the odds, then remember, the odds are actually 1 in almost 300 million. So we actually surpassed the odds there a little bit. So normally with the situation that we've set up here, you know, you could even get into a scenario where you could play for 14,000 years or 21,000 years and still not hit the jackpot. So it takes a long time. But with that said, I think that's going to do it for this video. Now, like I said earlier, this is not a very efficient script. Statistically, I don't believe that it matters if we're generating random numbers for each drawing. And that is going to slow down this simulation by a lot. We could probably get to thousands and thousands of years much faster than we did here. But I just like doing it this way because it's more true to how the actual lottery is done. And also doing it this way might give us some more ideas for how to simulate, you know, other examples like this in the future where those types of things actually would matter. So I kind of like breaking the problem down to do it the way that it's actually done in real life. So as for it being a slow script, trust me, I know that because I just sat there and watched that count up to 7,000 years until we hit the jackpot. So yeah, it could be a lot faster than it actually is. Also, like I said, I know that this has been my first video in a very, very long time, but I hope that you all had fun with this one and possibly learned a little of something along the way. But as far as new content, I promise you all that I'm feeling a lot more motivated to get back into recording these. And I hope that this year is going to have video releases much more often than there has been previously. And I promise to keep you all updated on those tutorials that I plan to release. But with that said, if anybody has any questions about what we covered in this video, then feel free to ask in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer those. And if you enjoy these tutorials and would like to support them, then there are several ways you can do that. The easiest way is to simply like the video and give it a thumbs up. And it's a huge help to share these videos with anyone who you think would find them useful. And if you have the means, you can contribute through Patreon or YouTube, and there are links to those pages in the description section below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos, and thank you all for watching.